Welcome, everybody. Welcome if you're on Zoom or you're here or it's the first time you've been here. Just welcome, everybody. Is that better, Sheila? Okay. Well, the service today is about embracing your imperfections. And as one knows, when it's my service, things don't happen normally. So we have got a few technical hitches, and you nearly never got the service because one of my flaws is procrastination. And I typed half of the service, and then I thought I'd go and have a cup of tea, and I forgot to save it. So last night I was rapidly typing it up again. so enjoy. So the beginning music was by Hauser, and it was Ed Sheeran's Perfect. And obviously, I'm not perfect. The opening words today are by Richard Gilbert. And I'll just light our chalice as we normally do. In the holy quiet of this hour, this is a sacred time that cannot be taken from us. These few minutes of calm in an often hectic week, this island of humanity in the midst of a warring world, we sit here to receive the blessings of life, the memories that drift across our minds, the hopes harboured in these few minutes, and the dreams we dare to conjure in the magic of this time. We now have our first hymn, which is the Green Book, and the words will appear on as magic. And it's number 247, A World of Wonder. And please stand if you're able. We now turn to prayer, and the last week has been Interfaith Week, which finishes today, but obviously we will carry on working with our other faiths. And this is an interfaith prayer, the first one. So if you just calm and sit quietly. May we seek to know the truth of your word and find common ground among the many faith traditions and recognize that we share a common humanity. Help us to be people of compassion and understanding, creating a path to a peaceful coexistence among all people. Amen. And our next prayer is by Brene Brown. May we find the courage to let go of who we think we're supposed to be, so that we can fully embrace our authentic selves, the imperfect, the creative, the vulnerable, the powerful, the broken, the beautiful. May we show ourselves and others the compassion that comes from knowing that we are all made from the same strength and struggle. May we create a just and equitable world where privilege isn't a prerequisite for self-expression and authenticity, where everyone feels invited and safe to express their power and their vulnerability. And last, may we experience the strength of connection, the love of belonging, and the grace of full joy. May it be so. We're now going to have our second hymn, which is number 184, The Best Things, and it's in the Green Book again. So stand if you're able. I think you're all in very good voice today. Oh, it's now our story time. And a lot of you have heard this story before. It's a wisdom story, but always worth listening to again. And it's called The Cracked Pot, and it's read by Sheila. Thank you, Sheila.
The Cracked Pot. Once upon a time, a woman named Chang Chang worked for a merchant in Sichuan province. The merchant's home was high atop a hill, and Chang Chang worked as the merchant's laundress. Every day she had to walk down the hill to collect water from the stream. When she was young, Chang Chang made 2 pots to carry her water, and these she hung upon a pole she could carry over her shoulders. She painted one pot blue and the other red, and on each pot she painted flowers. Chang Chang loved flowers, and she loved her pots. For some years she carried her pole down the hillside and collected water. Afterward she climbed the hill. She was strong and able, though she was growing older. And as time passed, the pots too grew old. One day, as Chang Chang prepared to place the pole over her shoulders, she noticed the blue plot had a slender crack along its side. She ran a finger over the crack and sighed, "My poor little pot." For a few moments, Chang Chang studied the crack. "Will you hold my water?" she whispered, but she decided she could still use the pot. As always, she carried both pots down the hill and filled them with water to the very brim. By the time she reached the hilltop, the pot with a crack was half empty, but this still left her plenty of water for doing the laundry. For the next 2 years, Chang Chang carried these pots down the hillside every morning. When she reached the stream, she filled them to the brim, and afterwards she walked back up the hill, balancing the pole across her shoulders. By the time she reached the house, the cracked blue pot was only half full, just enough for the laundry. Every day Chang Chang examined the crack, and though it was growing a little longer, she decided all was well. What she didn't notice was that the poor blue pot was miserable. Each time it drank from the stream, it secretly hoped that this day all the water would stay inside its belly. But each day when they reached the top of the hill, the pot knew it had failed. The blue pot glanced at the red pot and saw water filled to the top, and the blue pot began to feel desolate. In its resting place, on the far side of Chang Chang's little hut, the blue pot worried and wept. "I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good," the pot wailed. "Stop your whining," the red pot answered. "No one wants to hear from a pot." One day, the blue pot awoke and felt its crack beginning to expand. It was certain Chang Chang would soon decide to throw it away. Soon it would be no use to anyone for anything. That morning, as Chang Chang climbed the hill, she was startled to hear a voice she had never heard before. "Chang Chang," the voice said, "throw me away. I'm no good for anyone or anything." Chang Chang stopped and looked around, wondering who could be speaking to her. "Hello," she called down the hill. But the voice that answered was very near. "I'm right here," said the blue pot, swinging this way and that way to get her attention. "I'm your pot, the pot you made with your own 2 hands. The pot has served you so well all these years, but I see now my time is finished. The crack in my side has made me useless. When you carry me up the hill, I spill all my water. I'm no good." For a long moment, Chang Chang stood very still, amazed that her pot had spoken. "Is that you?" she whispered, looking close. "Are you speaking, dear pot?" "It is I," said the pot. "I am so sorry I failed you, but I have." Chang Chang was overjoyed to know her pots were as full of life as she had always imagined. But she was sad to hear such sorrowful words. "But Pot, you don't understand," she said. "You haven't been paying attention. Look around." Chang Chang pointed to the path beside them, the path up the hill. And for the first time, the pot stopped looking inward and instead looked out. On the right side of the hill, the pot noticed beautiful flowers growing in abundance. Poppies and peonies and chrysanthemum and narcissus and citron. A ribbon of colour edged the path. "And look at the other side of the hill," Chang Chang said. The pot glanced to the other side and saw it was bare. "I've always known about your floor," said Chang Chang, "and so I planted seeds on your side of the path. And every day you water them and add more beauty to the world." The blue pot was overjoyed. All its sadness was gone. It understood, just as Chang Chang always had, that every being has its unique flaws, and it's our little quirks and faults that make us and the world so interesting.
Thank you, Sheila. Read beautifully. Thank you. Now we have a short reading by Omar Itami, and again about nobody is perfect. No palm tree is perfectly shaped, yet we marvel at the beauty with which it stands. No seashell is perfectly drawn, yet we marvel at the beauty with which it curves. Accept and appreciate yourself as you are today, in your natural state, just like you would a tree in a forest, a flower in the garden, or a seashell by the shore. You are the entirety of you. You are whole. You are beautiful. We'll now have a short meditation by Thich Nhat. So if you just sit as you feel comfortable and slowly breathe in and out. I breathe in and dwell peacefully in the present moment. I breathe out and know that this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I feel happy to be alive. Breathing out, I smile to life. I breathe in and dwell peacefully in the present moment. I breathe out and know that this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I feel happy to be alive. Breathing out, I smile to life. As I said before, this is about embracing your imperfection. And one of mine is I don't think I ever get the timing of a service right, so it might be a shorter service. Okay. So today is Stir Up Sunday. Stir Up Sunday started in Victorian times when families would come together to stir their homemade Christmas puddings. This happens today as it is 5 weeks before Christmas, the last Sunday before Advent. It used to have 13 different ingredients to symbolize Jesus and his disciples. I think we're a bit like Christmas puddings. A mix of this and that with all our flaws and imperfections. We are all imperfect in an imperfect world, but isn't that what is actually so wonderful? Each of us is beautifully imperfect and unique. Brene Brown, in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, says that in the process of embracing our imperfections, it's then we find our truest gifts, which are courage, compassion, and connection. I realized what she was meaning during 3 occasions. As is usual for me, it's when I'm waiting at a travel stop or something, or on a bus or a plane or whatever. It's usually to do with travel. And this was, the first time was on a plane, and the other 2 times were at a bus station. And one of my big flaws is sometimes just wanting to be left alone in peace. Not often, but occasionally. So the first instance, I was on a plane to Spain to meet up with family. I had a window seat. Literally, just before takeoff, two really rowdy young women in their tracksuits got on the plane and sat in the two seats next to me. Oh, my heart sank. Okay. Oh no, I thought, I'll keep my head down. I'll bury my head in a book so I wouldn't have to talk. But things changed. They insisted on talking to me and sharing their sweets. They insisted on buying me a drink. They wanted to buy me an alcoholic one, but finally I said, okay, I'll have a coffee. I suddenly realised that to them, I may have looked like their grandmother. Funny, really, considering how independent I tried to be. But in that moment, I realised that they were being kind and caring and wanting to look after an elderly lady. On getting off the plane, I said I was going to the toilet and I'd be all right, but they insisted on waiting for me and seeing me through passport control. I'd made really bad assumptions about these two young women. And, they were kind, they were caring. And they told me they came from a very poor part of Wales and they'd worked and saved for 2 years to have a long weekend away. Their mothers were looking after their children. And I thought about Brene Brown and what she said. And I realised they'd broken through, and I felt that really strong connection and empathy that Brene Brown talked about. Didn't end there, and I didn't really learn, although I'm trying. The two other times were at a bus station. The first time I was sitting waiting for a bus. It was pouring. I was wet. The bus didn't turn up. Oh no, I was miserable. Don't even come near me, I thought. But a lady came and sat next to me. Oh dear, please don't talk to me. No, I just wanted to wallow in my wetness and the bus not turning up. But she started to talk, and I've been brought up not to be rude. It was a simple story that she told me. She had previously got on a bus, started talking to the driver. She asked him if he had a nice wife. He jokingly said, well, sometimes she is, sometimes she's not. And the lady said she had spoken to no one else that day, and just him taking time to joke with her cheered her up. So the next day she bought some chocolates and hoped she would see the same driver. Happily she did, and told the driver she had bought chocolates for his wife. And the driver said, well, you can give them to her yourself. She's sitting over there on the bus. As I said, a very simple story, but it meant a lot to this lady. And she wanted the joy of retelling it. Once again, someone broke through my floor of miserableness and moodiness, and I got great compassion, and I felt a connection with her. The last time, I was again sitting waiting for a bus that didn't turn up. Again, it was raining. Oh, a lot of us were there. We'd been waiting nearly an hour. We were wet and moaning. So I'm still moaning, but I am getting a bit better, I think. So it was the time all the school kids came out. Oh my. We thought they'll get on the bus. It'd be so noisy. It would not be peaceful. Suddenly, everything stopped it was like slow motion. As two women were getting on a bus with their dog, the dog missed a step and slipped under the bus. It was horrific, honestly. We were all in shock, and you felt just a deathly silence. But a most wonderful thing happened. The school children, who had been very rowdy and misbehaving, they just looked at each other and decided that the thinnest boy among them would crawl under the bus and try to get the dog out. Without a thought to himself, he did this and managed to get the terrified elderly dog out. We all clapped and the two ladies burst into tears of joy. Probably I hadn't been the only one thinking how annoying these boys were. But through this awful happening, young and old became connected, and the courage of that boy was incredible. And recently, I'd been questioning about God. And, sometimes in my life I do question God. And through those three happenings, I felt that God was there. And it was a really moving time. So I think we don't always see God in the big things. I think the presence of God was there in those three occasions in the little things. Some of you have heard about Japanese wabi-sabi. Okay. We often think of it just as a method of sticking a broken pot back together, but making sure the cracks still show. Sometimes even painting over the cracks with gold paint so they show up more. But that isn't really what it's all about. Wabi-sabi is a Japanese philosophy. It denotes a more connected way of living to ourselves and to others. It's all about imperfection, simplicity, and impermanence. It's also about seeing the beauty in all things, hence the above example about the pot and the story we heard earlier. Aren't we all like the pot? We are often broken and put back together through our life experiences, and often we are frightened to show our vulnerability. But when we do, we find others have vulnerabilities, and we can help each other. We try very hard to do things perfectly, to act perfectly, to even think perfect thought. But Ernest Kurt and Catherine Ketchum describe the spirituality of imperfection as a spirituality of not having all the answers. I think our Unitarian faith lets us ask questions and doesn't have all the answers. Some would say that Unitarianism is imperfect. And how wonderful is that? Perhaps it's perfectly imperfect. A religion that lets us question, just as Jesus said in the Bible in Matthew. He wants us to question. We are, as the late philosopher Krishnamurti, he said, our souls come from the same paper, but what makes us unique are the folds that form inside the paper. I'd like to end with quite a happy quote by the writer Ashley Bright. I might not be perfect, but some parts of me are excellent. Thank you for listening. And I think that applies to each one of you. We're not perfect, but some parts of us all are pretty good. So our final hymn is the Green Book, number 33, Do You Hear? May the warm rays of sun fall upon your home, and may the hand of a friend always be near. May green be the grass you walk on, may blue be the skies above you, may pure be the joys that surround you, may true be the hearts that love you. May it be so.